Hello, I hope you're all doing well. I want to start talking about what you read in the chapter 4 on the early Ojibwe. As we talked last chapter, the Dakota were the group of people that were the first ones here in Minnesota, but eventually that would change when the Ojibwe moved into the area. Um, the Ojibwe started making that move and started arriving here in the 1600s. They arrived starting in the Atlantic by the Atlantic Ocean, and as we go through the chapter, we'll talk more about that journey that took them from the Atlantic Ocean into Minnesota and Wisconsin. In your packet, one of the questions asked you to name the differences and similarities between the Ojibwe and the Dakota, and that was hopefully you found those answers in these paragraph here that I'm moving the mouse on, and you answered things like wigwams versus teepees, using birch bark and things like that. And there's some other differences, so make sure you read that. And the Ojibwe, as I mentioned earlier, they were making that migration west. Migration is one of your vocab words that you can see there. So make excuse me. So make sure you know what that word means. And the Ojibwe made this migration west for several reasons. Right at the beginning of this page, it says, "One day, 7 prophets appeared among the Ojibwe and forecast the future." A prophet is basically somebody that comes to either in living form or a spirit, depending on what you believe in, and they predict what's going to happen, or they say this is going to happen. And the Ojibwe took all of them as signs. A little bit later in this chapter, we will read a story about the Ojibwe migration and why they moved to where they did. And hopefully you read that box down here in blue that talks about the different names for the Ojibwe. Just like we talked with the Dakota, who were also called the Nadawisu by the Ojibwe when the Ojibwe came in the area, and then that was eventually shortened to Sioux by the French. The Ojibwe have a couple different pronunciations. They can be pronounced Ojibwe or Ojibwa, and you see some different spellings there. All the spellings are fine. But themselves, they call themselves Anishinaabe, which means original people. So you'll either hear me refer to them as Anishinaabe using their word or using Ojibwa or Ojibwe. And another one in there is the United States government started using Chippewa. So you might also hear that term Chippewa used to describe the Ojibwe. But in this chapter, I'll mostly be using Ojibwe. On this map, you can see on 405, it shows you the route that they took from the Atlantic Ocean and making their migration moving to the west. And what's neat about this, if you're not sure how to pronounce something, you can click on it.
1. Mooneyong, Montreal.
So it gives the Ojibwe word for it, and then it gives the English translation. So the first they went to Montreal, and then from Montreal they went to
2. Gitchigakabakong, Niagara Falls.
Then after Niagara Falls, they moved to
3. Wawiantono, Detroit.
After spending time at Detroit, they moved to
4. Manitoulin Island.
So that only has one, so it's the same name used by both groups. And then after they spent time at the island, they then moved to
5. Awittigong, Sault Ste. Marie.
So then after Sault Ste. Marie, they moved to
6. Wikwadong, Fond du Lac.
Then after Fond du Lac, they moved to
7. Jagawamikong, Chickwamegon Bay.
And according to the story of their migration, they knew they made it to the end of their journey when they made it to a place where food grew on water. And that food that grows on water is wild rice, or as the Ojibwe call it in their language, manoman, which you can see right down there. So wild rice, manoman, which we talked about in the Dakota chapter. And not a whole lot for me to say on this page, but just you can see the heading here says it all: people, the woods, and water. So they depended on nature for everything, just like the Dakota did. The Ojibwe would too. And just like the Dakota, the other thing they have in common is trying to preserve their language, so keep their language going. When I was in college, I took a year of Ojibwe language. It is a very difficult language to learn. Like a few words I remember is buju or anin are a couple words that mean hello. Miigwech means thank you. There's no real response to miigwech. So here, as you can see, there. Oh, I clicked on the wrong thing. They are trying to preserve the Ojibwe language. So make sure in your own time you click on this and read it. So it's right up here where it says view text, or you can even click on this web connect to learn more about the Ojibwe language. Just like the Dakota language had a page you can go to and learn more about here. It's the same thing. Here you can take time to just kind of, like if you want to search for a word in English, let's just say canoe. So here is how you say canoe in Ojibwe. Click maybe click right there. And then you can click listen. So that's how you say canoe. So this is a website you can go to learn more about the Ojibwe language, or maybe look up a translation of an English word, hear how it's pronounced in Ojibwe. And you do that by clicking on this web connect up there. That's about it for this part that I want to talk about. As we go over more of the chapter where we'll talk about fishing, and then we'll go season by season, starting with spring. And anytime you get to a spot where you have a video, where it says watch a video, please watch a video. Like here also has a watch a video. They show you what is happening, like how they fish, how they collect maple sugar, and you can see it in person instead of just reading the words. It's more beneficial for you to hear it. If you have any questions about anything that I talked about, please let me know. Thanks for listening. Take care. Bye.